there, thank you so much for clicking onto this video. Welcome to my channel. It is good to have you around. We're going to talk about my visa renewal, but the application process for the drum rolls, United States of America. So let's get into it immediately. Let's do that. 20. So if you're not new here, you obviously know that this is my second time applying for the visa. If it's your first time here, now you do. This is my second time applying. Oh, do we say renewing? We're really technically renewing the visa because we got it in 2020 and then it just expired a few months ago. This is 2025. So it's expired in March and I decided to wait it out a little bit and I started my application process in July of 2025. So if you're thinking of applying or renewing your visa for the USA, this video is clearly for you. I'm going to break down my experience, what I did to get to this point, the websites I went to, the nitty-gritties of what I can share. I will share that with you. And then, we'll see if and when you're going to get your visa too. Yeah? Because you should be getting it. You're getting it. Why I'm calling this a renewal instead of a new application is because I made this application almost immediately after my visa expired. Usually the US has this opportunity for you to renew your visa as soon as it expires. And then you are waived from the interview and all that hula baloo that goes with the interview and the nerves. So what ends up happening for people who are renewing the application is that they just drop their application on one of the drop-off points that the USA has. And then you go back and pick your visa. Unless you've done something wrong, and the US people, honestly, they will only call you when you've done something wrong. They will not call you if everything is okay. So unless you've done something wrong, and they will have to ask you to go to their offices and see them at their embassy. If not, you'll just get it immediately sent back to wherever drop-off they make you drop it off at. You go pick it up at the same drop-off. So that's technically my experience. I dropped off my application and my passport to an office in A&M, and I picked the visa in my passport from the same destination or the same venue, whatever you want to call it. But it's important to mention that the process is pretty much the same, whether you're renewing your application or making a new application. You still have to fill the DS-160, you still have to pay. This time it was actually cheaper than the previous time, which is interesting because it's been 5 years, and last year but one, a few of my friends were applying and it was in the 30s. This time it was 24,000. I was surprised because I was expecting the 30-something thousand and then it came down to 24,000. I don't know if that is the renewing price or that is actually just the price as is. But yes, you have to pay, you have to fill the DS-160, you have to provide a passport picture. Like the process is basically as if you're applying for a new one. So let me just take you through my process and what I did. Yeah? So I went to this site, travel.state.gov, and it was just telling me what the US visa was. It really was giving us the introduction of what this visa is and the type of visas and the waiting periods. I was obviously going for the B1, B2 visa, which is the tourist/business visa. I put in my country as Kenya, the country of my passport, obviously, and the reason for travel, which was business. So I'm going there for a conference. Business or employment is the option that came up. And then down here, what will you be doing in the US? I read through these options. I am traveling for temporary business. I am coming for temporary employment in the US, which is no. I am traveling as a member of a ship or flight crew, which is no. I am traveling on behalf of my national government or an international organization. Nope. I will participate in an approved exchange program. No. I am coming for permanent employment in the US. No. So my reason was number one, which is I am traveling for temporary business. Truth is, I'm traveling for a conference. A conference is temporary business based on the suggestions that were here. And then it says find visa, which is what I clicked. And this is what came up. It gave me the examples of travel on this visa. I clicked on the Business Visa Center link, which seemed to not be very helpful. Oh boy. So I went back to that page for the US visas, as you can see here, and clicked on DS-160 Online and Immigrant Visa Application Form. And then it took me to Visitors Visa Category B, which I clicked onto. And then it came as B1, B2. As you can see on the screen, they categorized B1 as you were there to consult with business associates, you want to attend a scientific, educational, professional, or business convention or conference, which is where I fall under actually, because I'm planning to attend a conference in the US, or you're planning to settle an estate or negotiate a contract. I settle on number 2, so I am definitely under business B1. But also I could apply for B1, B2, which enables me to have some tourism opportunities, and these are the explanations of what a B2 is about. So if you're planning to do any of these things, you can apply for the B2 visa. So tourism, vacation, in bracket holiday, you want to visit friends or relatives, you want medical treatment, you want to participate in social events hosted by fraternal, social, or service organizations, you want to participate by amateurs in musicals, sports, or similar events or contests, if not being paid for participating. You want to enroll in a short recreational course or study, not for credit towards a degree, for example, a 2-day cooking class while on vacation, etc. That is when you can apply for a B2 visa. So again, obviously, as you can see, you should not be working with a tourist visa. It's pretty much standard for a lot of countries out here. How to apply is what I did later. When scroll down, these are the explanations they're giving, and then I clicked on that. And it brought me to the apply for non-immigrant visa page, which is exactly what I ended up doing. I filled in the information as requested to start an application. I put in my information as Nairobi, Kenya, because it said select a location where you'll be applying for this visa, and then it asks me to fill this code again to just confirm that I am not a robot but a human being. I filled that and clicked start an application because it was my first time. The second time it was my first time. They asked me to upload my picture, which I did. I had it saved on my computer, and once my picture was done and tested and approved, they directed me to this place where they wanted to make me sign a consent, agreeing to all those things. You have no choice, so you have to just agree if you want that visa in the end. But of course, you can read through it if you want to, when you're actually going through the application yourself. They asked me for a security question, which will help me every time I want to come back and retrieve my application, and I filled in my answer over there. And then now this is the visa application and basic information: my name, my date of birth, my city, province, basic, obvious questions to get to know who I am. And I did that for everything. I've decided to get my laptop and see if I can get those questions. So if I'm looking down, just bear with me. I'm looking at the laptop. I think I saved them here. I hope I did, for the sake of this video and its contents. I think I have found it, because I'm not going to show you my application form. It has a lot of my information and data protection. I have to protect that. So I'm going to just take you through what it is they asked me. So obviously we've seen the first form. They're asking about my name, my sex, my marital status, my date of birth, my country of origin. And then they ask, do you hold or have you ever held any nationality other than the one indicated above on nationality? I answered no. Are you a permanent resident of a country or region other than the one mentioned? Of course, you answer your answer. They ask for your national ID number. They ask for your social security number. If you don't have it, just write does not apply. They also ask for your US taxpayer ID number. If you don't have it, just write does not apply. There's a drop box and you can fill that as not applicable. And then the next questions were related to my address and phone information. So address, my home address, I filled it up there. They asked for my phone number, the primary number, I filled that. My work phone number, I filled that. Asked for my email address. I filled that in there. They asked about my social media. Do you have any social media presence? So number 1, Facebook. And then they ask you to write the social media identifier. Actually, I think you just search the social media platforms and then you write your handle. So I wrote for Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter, /X, YouTube, this one. Yes, and then they asked, have you used additional social media in the last 5 years? Apart from the ones I listed, no, I have not. So I answered and said no. So if you used any other apart from the ones that are current, you will say yes, and then they will ask you to give more information about that. And then, of course, after social media information and phone numbers, they go down to travel document information. They ask what my passport is about. I say it's a regular type. They ask for my passport number. I put it there. Passport book number, it doesn't apply for us in Kenya with our passports. They asked for the country/authority that issued that passport. I said Kenya. They asked for the city where it was issued. I said Nairobi. State/province that was issued, again Nairobi. Country/region issued, Kenya. Issuance date, you fill your date, and the expiry date, you fill it there. Have you ever lost a passport or had one stolen? You answer according to your situation. For me, it's a no, thank God. Other persons traveling with you for this trip? No. So I filled no. The next category was US travel information. They ask you, have you ever been to the US? If yes, you answer yes. If no, you answer no. For me, I said yes. They asked for the date when I arrived. I filled that there. I remember when I mentioned in one of my many visa videos that you need to keep a record of your visa processes or your countries for the last 10 years. This is one of it, because they will ask you such questions and you need to retrieve that information and put the exact dates. So you need to remember some of these things. If it's an email, keep it safe, archive it somewhere, because you never know when you'll need it. If it's a passport, keep it safe. If there's a stamp saying that this is the date you left the country for the US, have that in mind for when you're making your new applications for other visas, because they will definitely ask you that information, especially for 10 years and below. Keep those documents in a good space because you might need them again and again and again and again. And sometimes for the US, it's not just the 10 years, it's going to be a lifetime of this type of questions. I feel like with some things. Was it US or Canada? My friend was telling me that they asked her about a visa that was, she was applying for a Canada visa. And then they asked her about this US visa that was rejected over 10 years ago. Yeah, so sometimes they will ask for things that are over 10 years old. But just keep your information well, just in case they need it, especially with our passports. I know, yeah, but do that. I digress. Let me go back to the form. They ask about the date of arrival. When I arrived in the US, I wrote my date. It was 18th of September 2023. And the length of my stay, I stayed there for a month. They write months and then years and then something like that. So you feel according to how long you've been there. Weeks, I think, and days as well. So for me, it was exactly a month. They asked, did you ever hold a driving license for the US? I said no. Have you ever been issued a US visa? Obviously. But you see, this is where they'll catch you. If you've never received a US visa and you've been to the US for this period of time, how did you get there? So for me, I said yes. They asked date last visa was issued. I answered my question. And then, of course, they asked for your visa number. Let me get my passport. In the passport, I want to look for the US visa. The visa number is on the right corner of your visa. It's in red. You'll just see it. It's at the bottom right of your visa and it's in red. Did you see that information? Oops. I hope you didn't. But yes, it's in red. So put that visa number as they have asked. Are you applying for the same type of visa? For me, that was the case. I was applying for the same B1, B2 visa. So I said yes. Are you applying in the same country or location where the visa above was issued? And is this country/location your place of principal of residence? So they're just asking, are you applying for the same visa in the same country you applied for the previous one? For me, the answer was yes. Have you been 10 printed? What is 10 printed, you ask? It is getting your biometrics, your fingerprints et al. So 10 fingerprints, hence 10 printed. I said yes. Has your US visa ever been lost or stolen? My answer was no. Has US visa ever been cancelled or revoked? My answer was no. Have you ever been refused a US visa or been refused admission to the US or withdrawn your application for admission at the port of entry? My answer was no. Has anyone ever filed an immigrant petition on your behalf with the US Citizenship and Immigration Services? My answer was no. Then went to the next slide. The next category was US contact information. So where I'm going to stay in the US, who has invited me, all that nitty gritty. So it asks for your contact person in the US. If it's a conference as I was attending, usually there's someone who's sending those invitation letters. That person is your contact person. So for me, I filled my contact person's name over there. And then they ask for the organization name in the US. The organization that invited me for this conference, I filled that information there. And then the relationship to me, the relationship of this person and the organization to me, I wrote business associate, which is accurate. That is how we are related. This is a business application, remember? It's a B1, but I also just went for B2 because I might tour a little bit here and there in the US if I have an opportunity to do that. And then they asked for the US contact address of where I am planning to go this time when I get to the US. I filled my information there. I also filled the phone number of my contact person and his or her, the contact person's email address. I also filled that there. And then they asked for my family information, not the family information of my contact person, my personal family information. So they asked me my father's surname, which I filled, and then my father's given name, which I filled. His date of birth, I filled that. Is my father in the US, is the question they asked. I said no. Then they went to my mother's surname. I think if I said yes, then more questions would have come. For me, it's a no, so it was pretty much straightforward. And then they asked about my mother's surname, which I filled, and then my mother's given names, I filled that, according to their IDs, obviously. And then the date of birth of my mom, I put it there. Is your mother in the US? I said no. Do you have any immediate relatives, not including your parents, in the US? I said no. Do you have any other relatives in the US? So the first one is immediate relatives. The other one is just any other relative that you may know or don't know who lives. Okay, that you may know, you have to know them to answer that you have them there. Yeah, that you may know that are living in the US. My answer is no. Not to the best of my knowledge, I don't know any relatives living in the US. And obviously, it's safer to say that than actually saying that distant relative that you don't even talk to. If you now start feeling, oh, you know this relative, you've just had your aunties and uncles talking about that person living in the US, but you've never really talked to this person, you've never interacted. Even this visit you're going to the US, you're not going to be interacting with that distant relative. Why would you be sharing such information? Less is more. Yeah, in some ways. So don't give information that will be detrimental to your application process. Technically, it's a no because we don't really know each other like that. You're not going to come and pick me at the airport, will you, distant relative? No, you won't. I won't even plan to come and visit you wherever it is you're living. So think about it. Use your discretion, use wisdom when you're answering that particular question. It can be a trick question, especially if you have relatives. Are you planning to go visit them? Are you planning to go live with them? Did those relatives get to the US in the right way? Or did they sneak in there? Will that affect your application then in the eyes of the visa officer? Will they be like, if the relative could sneak into the US, what makes this person not, end up sneaking into the US? You get what I mean? So use wisdom when you're answering that question. It is a trick question. There's a wink. It's a trick question. Be wise while you're answering it. Especially if you're really, really not acquainted to this relative. And you're not going to see that relative anyway when you actually end up getting to the US. I think you get the point. There's no point of me belaboring it too much. I think you get what I mean. Be wise while answering that question. So they went ahead to the next piece, asking about my work, education, and training information. They start by asking for my primary occupation, which I answered there. And by primary occupation, it's really just a title of what it is you do. Is it social sciences? Is it accounting? Those things. I answered mine. And then they asked for my present employer or school name. I answered present employer because I'm not in school at the moment. But obviously, if you're a student, then you put in your school details over there. Then they asked for my present employer or school address. Again, the address of my employer because I am employed. If you're in school, put the address of your school over there. And then the city, I said Nairobi. Postal address, I put it there. Country or region, I said Kenya. The start date, when I started working for my employer, again, if you're in school, when you started your school in that place, I put in my start date over there. Work phone number, I put in our work official phone number, like the one at the reception. I put that there. Again, even if it's for the school, you'll put your school phone number there. Monthly salary in local currency, if employed, that's in brackets. I put it there. They didn't say if it's net or gross. So obviously, if they don't say it, you put your gross. Obviously, you don't put the lesser number, you put the bigger number. Because obviously with these policies, when it comes to employment, our net is something we need therapy for. It's something we need. Because if you see the number that you actually should be adding, if all these things were not being deducted, it could be a very good number. But yeah, so I obviously went with the gross. I put my gross as the figure. And then they asked what I do. Briefly describe your duties at work. For me, because I work, I wrote a brief explanation of what it is I do. It asked for my previous work information. Were you previously employed? I said no, because I've worked for this organization for a very long time. So I said no. Have you attended any educational institutions at a secondary level or above? I said yes. And then they asked me to name the institutions. I named my university. They asked for the address. I put it there. The city, I put it there. The state or province of the university, I put it there. Postal address, definitely put there. And then they asked for the course I studied. I put my master's over there. And then they asked for the date of attendance. I put... Do you see the things about dates? It's so interesting because they asked date of attendance from. So it means the date you started attending that university or that course. So those acceptance letters, when they accept you into university, apparently those dates are important. I did a random guess and just put the 1st of August because that semester was starting in August, but I don't remember when exactly. So just put 1st of August and the year I started. But if you have the exact date, it's important to just keep that information. You never know when they'll need it. And then the date of attendance too is the date I graduated. I put it there. And then they asked if I have any additional information, and these were the questions that led to that. Do you belong to a clan or a tribe? I said yes. In Kenya, you have a tribe. They asked you to name the clan or tribe, and I put my information there. They asked me about the language I speak. Provide a list of languages you speak. Language 1, I put there. Language 2, I put there. I only speak English and Swahili eloquently. So those are the ones I put. Have you traveled to any countries / regions within the last 5 years? I said yes. And then they tell you to provide a list of countries / regions you visited. So of course I put in my list over there. Let me read them out for you. Country 1, Saudi Arabia. I put them as per the latest, what I had done the last. So obviously here they're trying to see if you've traveled to some countries that they don't want you to travel in. Or if you've traveled in those countries and if you're renewing a visa, they might call you in to ask you a little bit more questions of why you were in those countries in the first place. I don't want to mention the countries, but you will know when you actually go into the process and they start calling you and asking you why were you in this particular country. And this is my list. It seemed to be safe. I was a little bit worried, with one of the countries, but it seems like there's nothing wrong. They are friends. Actually, as soon as I was worried, I saw that the current president went there and they signed documents and they were happy and they were making merry. So it made me feel, okay, so they're good. They're in good terms with that country. So nothing to worry about, really. So this is the list of my countries. Country 1, Saudi Arabia, and then Uganda, Rwanda, Serbia, United Kingdom, United States, Greece, Switzerland, Netherlands, Tanzania, United Arab Emirates, Italy. There's a lot more that I didn't put, like Brussels and France and all those other small places. For example, if there's no record of me going. Okay, why I'm saying there's no record of me going is if I have a Schengen visa and the port of entry was Netherlands, and I decide to go to Belgium, and then I go to, for example, that time I got a Netherlands visa. I entered Netherlands, stayed in Netherlands for a little bit, used the train to go to Brussels, and then Bruges in Belgium still. And then after Belgium, we went to another country. Germany, went to Cologne. But you see, all that, there's no immigration record. I have been there, but there's no immigration record to show that I've been there. Apart from pictures, of course, if they ask for pictures, I'll show them. But there's no immigration record to show that I've been to those countries. So I didn't put them up. I'm not advising in any way. It was just more of my preference. I did want to put them up there, and there's no evidence when they call these embassies or these consulates or whatever, and they don't find my information there. And the only information they find is the one for Netherlands. As much as a Schengen visa can grant me entry to all these other countries. In fact, when you cross the border of Netherlands to Belgium, for example, there's no passport control. You just go. It's like leaving Naivasha to Kisumu. There's no one in between those two borders of counties. You just pass. So I didn't put them there, but they're part of the countries I've visited. I've gone to over 25 countries so far, but I only listed 12 in this application. And then, of course, the ones that have stamps, I definitely put them there. Whatever is on my passport, whatever is showing that I actually made access to, and there's proof in the port of entry and on my passport and in the immigration spaces, I put it on the application form. They asked, have you belonged to or contributed to or worked for any professional social charitable organization? I said yes. And then they asked me to name them, and I named them. Do you have any specialized skills or training such as firearms, explosives, nuclear, biological, or chemical experience? I said no. Have you ever served in the military? I said no. The next question, have you ever served in, been a member of, or been involved with a paramilitary unit, vigilante unit, rebel group, guerrilla group, or insurgent organization? I said no. Obviously, if you say yes to those questions, they will ask you to explain. But for me, the answers were no. The next category is security and background information. And the first question was, do you have any communicable diseases? I answered no. Do you have a mental or physical disorder that poses or is likely to pose a threat to the safety or welfare of yourself or others? I answered no. Are you or have you ever been a drug abuser or addict? I answered no. Have you ever been arrested or convicted for any offense or crime, even though subject of a pardon, amnesty, or other similar actions? I said no. Have you ever violated or engaged in a conspiracy to violate any law relating to controlled substances? I said no. Are you coming to the US to engage in prostitution or unlawful commercialized vice? Or have you been engaged in prostitution or procuring prostitutes within the last 10 years? I answered no. Have you ever been involved in or do you seek to engage in money laundering? I said no. Have you ever committed or conspired to commit a human trafficking offense in the US or outside the US? I said no. Are you the spouse, son, or daughter of an individual who has committed or conspired to commit a human trafficking offense in the US or outside the US, and have you, within the last 5 years, knowingly benefited from the trafficking activities? I said no. But you see, all these things are connected. So remember that relative you mentioned that you have up there. Have they done any of these things? And now you wanna, Anyway, have you knowingly aided, abetted, assisted, or colluded with an individual who has committed or conspired to commit a severe human trafficking offense in the United States or outside the United States? I said no. Do you seek to engage in espionage, sabotage, export control violations, or any other illegal activities while in the US? I said no. Do you seek to engage in terrorist activities while in the US, or have you ever engaged in terrorist activities in general? I said no. Have you ever or do you intend to provide financial assistance or other support to terrorists or terrorist organizations? I said no. Are you a member or representative of a terrorist organization? I said no. Are you the spouse, son, or daughter of an individual who has engaged in terrorist activities, including providing financial assistance or other support to terrorists or terrorist organizations in the last 5 years? I say no. Have you ever ordered, incited, committed, assisted, or otherwise participated in genocide? Say no. Have you ever committed, ordered, incited, assisted, or otherwise participated in torture? I said no. Have you committed, ordered, incited, assisted, or otherwise participated in extrajudicial killings, political killings, or other acts of violence? I said no. Have you ever engaged in the recruitment or the use of child soldiers? I said no. Have you, while serving as a government official, been responsible for or directly carried out at any time particularly severe violation of religious freedom? I said no. Have you ever been directly involved in the establishment or enforcement of the population control, forcing a woman to undergo an abortion against her free choice, or a man or a woman to undergo sterilization against his or her free will? I said no. Have you ever been directly involved in the coercive transplantation of human organs or bodily tissues? I said no. And then there's part 4 and 5. Have you ever been the subject of a removal or deportation hearing? I said no. And obviously not just in the US, it's anywhere in the world. Have you ever sought or obtained or assisted others to obtain a visa entry into the US or any other US immigration benefit by fraud or willful misrepresentation of other unlawful means? I said no. Have you failed to attend a hearing on removability or inadmissibility within the last 5 years? I said no. Have you ever been unlawfully present, overstayed the amount of time granted by an immigration official, or otherwise violated the terms of a US visa? I said no. That's why we keep insisting, never overstay your visa. Leave when they say you need to leave. Then come back. Go back when you have to go back, but don't overstay your visa. Have you ever been removed or deported from any country? I said no. Part 5. Have you ever withheld custody of a US citizen child outside the US from a person granted legal custody by a US court? I said no. Have you voted in the US in violation of any law or regulation? I said no. Have you ever renounced United States citizenship for the purpose of avoiding taxation? Nope. Have you attended a public elementary school on student in bracket F status or a public secondary school after November 30th, 1996 without reimbursing the school? No. Nope, I have not done that. So I said no. And that was it. Pretty much after that, I signed and made my application officially. And then, of course, we were redirected to the payment page. It's actually a different link altogether. I'll put the link on my description so that you know what link to click on when you want to now start making the payment. And then after you're done making the payment, make an appointment for when you're going to the embassy to drop your application, if you're dropping your application. And for me, it was really just straightforward. They were like, let me see what I have. Yeah, I signed the documents and it says you have successfully signed and submitted your application. You cannot make any changes to your application at this point. Please click next confirmation to complete the application process, which I did. Once you're done applying or filling your DS-160 application, you go to this new site, which I had mentioned earlier. It is ais.usvisa-info.com. I'm going to put it in the description, like I said earlier. When you click on that, you just fill the questions as they come. For me, or for people who are renewing, because it's as a renewal, you will go to your page, which is the same as the one you did the first time. So you need to have that login information. If you don't, just say forgot password and they'll help you create a new one, which I think was my case. It's been 5 years. You forget some of these things. And then you log into your previous account, that account you used 5 years ago. And then click on the new group. There's an icon up there called new group. Click on that and then fill in the information as it comes. Obviously, when you say this, as I have put on the screen, then it will direct you to the payment platform where you'll make your payment. I paid 24,000 shillings. I'm going to look for the receipt and put it here. it was very affordable. I actually thought there'll be some after cost somewhere, but that was about it. They didn't ask me for any other monies. Of course, they said if I was to choose a different pickup point as opposed to the ones they suggested, which again, when I was looking for that option, I didn't find it. But if I was to choose that, they were gonna charge me some extra money. Anyway, I ended up going to the one that they had suggested, which was in Eldama Park. I just clicked view payment receipt and it's 185 USD. 185 USD at that time when I was paying was around 24,000 shillings, plus or minus some shillings over there. And then, of course, if you're going to pick a destination as opposed to the ones that they suggest, you're going to pay some extra cost for that convenience. But I ended up going to Eldama Park, where they have a drop-off station written US, first floor in Eldama Park. When you go to the gate and tell them you want the visa area, they'll show it to you. It's called BLS. So go to BLS, first floor. There's an entrance for the US and Spain and all those other countries, but as we're going to the US, so we go to the US counter. And then now when I went to the US counter, there's some writing on the glass saying that you need to pick a number, but there's no machine to pick a number. So I just went there and said, hi, I'm here to drop off my application. They're saying we should pick a number. Where are we picking the numbers from? And the lady was like, are you picking or dropping? I said, I'm dropping. She said, just sit down, I will call you in a minute. And I was like, oh, okay. And that day when I went, it was busy, but not too busy. So I sat down and they called my name. They didn't call my name. They just said, drop off, drop off. And me, who was dropping off, I went up there and they said, give me your documents. And I gave my documents. What documents did I carry? That is a very good question because it's very important to know this. Once you make the payment, they will send you a list of the documents they require you to drop off. And it came with an instruction. There's nothing here, just instructions. You'll get it once you've made your payment. So, of course, now this side has my information. It has my DS-160 code or whatever number they call it. It has my passport number as a code as well, a barcode. And then, of course, my visa class application, the class I'm applying for, which was B1, B2, business and tourism temporary visitor in brackets. And then it says you must courier your documents into the US consular section. Please gather the requested documents and generate a courier in authorization certificate by clicking the view courier in receipt button. So of course I did all that. You'll just follow it out. It's very easy and straightforward. It will be easy for you to go through it. And then these are the general required documents for all visa types. The list is current passport, valid for travel to the United States. The passport must be valid for at least 6 months beyond the period of your stay in the US. I think I've mentioned this in more than one video already, that when you're applying for a visa, your passport should be valid for at least 7 months. Let me just put it that way. 7 months if you're applying for a visa, if not a year. A year is safest, especially if you're getting a visa that is longer than 6 months. So your passport needs to be at least 6 months older every time for whatever visa application you're doing, be it US, be it Schengen, be it whichever country you're going to. Your passport needs to have a lifeline of more than 6 months after you're done with your visit in that place. So it says the passport must be valid for at least 6 months beyond the period of stay in the US. So if you're going to stay in the US for 1 year, then your passport should be how old? Answer with me, class. 1 year. Good job. Clap for yourselves. Yes, you're right. Yeah. And then it says passport containing the most recent issued US visa, if applicable. For me, obviously, I had the same passport as I did 5 years ago, so that's easy. But for example, now when I'm applying again in which year is this? This is 2025. When I'm applying again in 2030, I will definitely have a new passport, because my passport should be expiring anytime soon. If not expired, it's gonna get full. One of the two will take over. So whichever the case, I will have a new passport. I will have to carry my old passport. So you should not throw your old passport. They'll punch it at the immigration up in Kenya. So you just carry that passport, the old passport, and your new passport when you're dropping your application. But for my case, because the visa was in my current passport, I gave it as is. And then it says non-immigrant visa application form DS-160 confirmation page. You will print it out. Usually when you're done with the application, there's that page. at the end, they will ask you if you want it to be sent to your email or to be printed. Just print it out because you'll need it for this application. And then confirmation and instruction page printed from this website. The websites of payment, the AIS website. So obviously I printed that. It's one of the documents I did. And then one 5x5 centimeter or 2x2 inches color photo taken within the last 6 months. Further details regarding department photos guidelines can be found here. Of course, a picture of you. They say 1 on this form, but when I went to the offices in Eldama Park, they asked for 2. So just carry more than 1. If they don't need the 2 or the 3, go back home with them, but you better have them carried instead of having the inconvenience of starting to now replan the whole thing and drop your documents another day and you want to travel soon and all those other things. Yeah, so all those 5 documents, obviously, because this was a renewal and I was not going for an interview, there were some additional documents that I needed. They go ahead to explain what those additional documents are. They said the purpose of your trip. So you can either get the letter for invitation from the conference, which I got. It read well. And also I got a letter from my employer, which also entailed the purpose of my trip. And then, of course, your intent to depart the United States after your trip and or your ability to pay all the costs of your trip. That can be done in your letter of employment. Again, remember, I am applying for a visa to go and attend a conference, and pretty much that is work. That is a work trip. So if it's a work trip, the organization is taking care of my costs, right? So if they're taking care of my costs, they're going to write a letter confirming that they're going to take care of my costs in the US. So they did a letter saying that they are aware I'm traveling. They are aware that they are taking care of all my costs. How did that letter read? Let me look for it. Because it was done and signed on letterhead. It says, this organization, we are licensed, we hereby confirm that the above named is our employee, currently serving as that. She has been invited, to attend that from this to that date at this place. This is an official trip and will take care of her flight ticket, accommodation in the US, and all related expenses for this trip. She will resume duty on this date upon her return to Kenya. And then, of course, all those other things of please accord her necessary assistance, all those nice things. And then you sign and stamp. So obviously here where they're asking you to provide your intent to depart the US, it's already in that letter. Your ability to pay for all the costs, it's already in that letter. The evidence of your employment and of family ties may be sufficient to show the purpose of your trip and your intent to return to your home country. Again, that was also covered in my employer's letter. So my employer's letter covered 3 things that were required. Actually, more than that. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. In fact, all the 5 things were covered in my employer's letter. But I attached the employer's letter and the letter from the conference people inviting me to the United States of America. Yeah, and that was pretty much it. What documents did I attach? I obviously attached those documents that I read there. The passport that is valid, my previous US visa, my DS-160 confirmation page, my pictures. I put 2 in there. I put my employer's letter and also put my invitation letter. What else did I put? Let me see if there's anything else I put. No, that's it. That's all I did. I put them in an envelope. I went to Dema Park. We were at the desk and she asked if I'm dropping off. I said I'm dropping off. She took all my documents. I asked her if there's anything that I need. They are very friendly. So I said, please let me know if there's anything that I need to add over here. So she told me to sit down for a minute. She went through all my paperwork. And then she called me back and said, Grace, and I'm like, yes. And then she's like, everything is in order. And I was like, okay, fine. Will you guys call me or do I come? How long do I come after? Obviously, I knew they're going to reach out to me on email, but it's good to just ask these questions. She said, I will get an email once the visa is ready and for me to come and collect my passport. And I was like, cool. And I left. I left the passport over there. Application has been dropped. That was smooth. Yeah, I'll wait. She says 1 week. So we wait for a week and see how that will go. And then can I start planning the US trips again? Or use it for other places. It took exactly 7 days. I dropped it off on a Wednesday, and I think I got an email on a Wednesday the next week telling me it's time to collect my passport. US visa update. It's been a week. I dropped my application last week on Wednesday. Today is a Thursday, so it's been 7 full days, and today being a Thursday. Oh, don't talk to me. Is it listening to our conversation? I was saying it's been a week since I dropped my application. Today is Thursday. I have just looked at my emails and they've said that it's time to collect my passport. It's 2 p.m. They say the place closes at 5. So I think I'm going to go right now and see what that has to offer. So let's go. We have made it to Elderman Park. First floor. Let's go get our visa.
A few moments later.
We have it. We have a visa. We have a visa. Yay! It's gonna expire in 2030. I happy. And then I went and collected my passport and there was a visa in it. And I got my visa. Yay! We should be utilizing that US visa at some point in its lifetime. It's a 5-year visa again, which is good. We're going to utilize it accordingly. I don't know what else to add apart from all the best when you start your visa application process. Do you need an agent? No, you do not need an agent. It's a pretty straightforward process. You need to be very truthful with everything that you do. Do not do any forgery with any visa you're applying because these people know how to counter check the information. They do a lot of background information checks. And if they find you, they will block you and you'll be in trouble. Remember in one of the questions they asked about you being revoked a visa and all those things. You'll always have to explain that in every other visa that you apply after. Why were you revoked a visa? And if the reason is because you forged some documents, that will not be good for your future, if you get what I mean. Oh yeah, I don't know if I emphasized on why it's a renewal and not an application. If you apply for your visa within the year that it expires, so within 12 months after it expires, then you're eligible for a renewal, which helps you get exempted from the interview. If you wait for 12 months to go by, I don't know if it's 12 or 48 months. I'm playing it safe with 12 months. If you wait for the 12 months to go by, then you'll have to do an application and actually go to the consular or the embassy and have them interview you the same way they did with the first visa application. So if you want to avoid the nerve-wracking situation of going to actually explain your visa and why you need it and making that line in the morning and going through all those 10 printing again, the biodata and all that, just apply almost immediately after your visa expires. Then you just drop it off somewhere, you pay your money. It's more easy, it's less tedious if you ask me. It was a very simple, less nerve-wracking process this time compared to the first one. Final thoughts, if any. Don't be afraid to apply. Send those applications out there. Opportunities always meet us halfway, so we have to present ourselves to the opportunity and then they meet us halfway. Always make sure that your paperwork is truth to the best of your knowledge. Don't do any forgery. We've emphasized that already. Be honest in the process with everything. There are things that they ask more than once. If you noticed, I read some things that they seemed to be trying to see if they can catch you in a lie that you might have mentioned and forgotten about. So don't get caught in any lie. And also, just in case they reach out to you and ask you, you need to have the same answer as what you had written in your application forms. So be as truthful as possible. That's it, guys. That is it. I don't think I have anything else to add. Unless you might have questions, then it will be easy for me to address concerns from that perspective. But as for my experience, that is basically how my visa application experience went. Put any questions you have in the comments. Looking forward to hearing from you in that aspect as well. I don't think I want to end this video without mentioning that I have a chat with me opportunity when you're going through such processes like applying for visas or traveling or all those other nice stuff. reach out to me. The link is on my bio. Let's have a chat whenever you're ready, or whenever you want to make an application like this and you want to just pick my brain a little bit on the process itself. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking and for subscribing. I will see you next weekend. For now, have a good one. Bye bye.